Hi, I'm Al Martinez. Welcome to Untrashed. Today I'm going to show you how to make a dragon egg with stuff like this. Okay, before we do that, I just want to show you some dragon eggs that I've been working on in my studio. Dragons seem to be a big thing. If you look in the back here, we've done a few dragons made from trash in the earlier series using milk bottles and shopping bags and aluminum packaging from like sweet bread rolls and stuff like that. So the ones that I've been making, this one here, this is one that I completed probably a couple weeks before Christmas. And this one on the inside, it has a wooden base, and these little scales are made of nickel silver. And the nickel silver I got from things like this, which I found at the thrift store. So you can find things like this that people don't want anymore, and I basically cut them up into little scales and I nail them onto this piece of wood. So the scales are that size. They start out square and I shape them and I drill a little hole. And this is the one that I'm working on right now. And this one I'm using brass. So the brass scales that I got, this size, someone gave me this brass lamp. And it was about this deep. And I basically cut up the bottom. And I ended up with quite a few of these, and these I cut up into scales and I use those to put on here. So we're going to do something a little bit similar in the process, but instead of using metal and wood, we're going to use trash paper. So the thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about a couple of options on how you start with the base to do this, to end up like this. One of the ways I try, which is the way I did this one, but I found it's kind of tricky. So I took some cardboard from a cardboard box and I cut up, I made a template, and I decided that the egg's going to be 10 inches tall and 6 inches in diameter. So I used this as a template to cut two of these out. And you can see the slots in these, and I made the slots to go like this. So basically that's the start of this process. And then I cut more and I glued them in here, and then after that I covered it with strips of this pizza box. And what I did with those is I curl them, and the way you do that is you just take paper like this and you run it through your hand, and right away that wants to conform to the side of this. And this is what it looks like. Okay, so you can see here, these are the parts here. I cut some extra ones that glued in here, and then some little fiddly corners that I glued in there. Then I cut a whole bunch of these and cut these up, glued these on, tried to cross hatch that, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, oh, that's too much. So the other way I tried is I tried cutting a whole bunch of these in cardboard and just gluing them together. And gluing them together, I ended up with this. And this one, you can see these little steps here? Every time I marked one of these out, I cut it a little bit smaller until I got the shape. And then I use a knife like this to carve the shape so it's a little bit more egg shape, but not quite smooth enough to glue the scales on. So the options are, here's another one that I did, and you can see here that I've just glued things just to kind of make the surface a bit smoother. So here's what you can do to make it even smoother than that. you can take a bread package like this and put your egg inside. And then you take your hands and make it smoother. Like this. And we're going to use the hot glue gun to glue these parts down. So the thing that's probably the most important is that when you start covering this, your egg, you have a relatively smooth surface. Okay, so that's pretty smooth, see? With this one, what I tried to do is I tried to cross these to create like a net that the scales are going to go on. But we won't use this one because I think this is a bit too much. This one's much easier to do. So once you've got the basis of your egg and ready to cut, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make the scales. So what I've done is I've made a template of the size scales that I think is going to be the right size for this size egg. I thought because those scales on the metal one are so small, this one being 10 inches tall, I'm going to use bigger scales, which also means I don't have to cut as many scales. But still, covering this is probably 150 scales. So, how did I get those scales? I made those scales from stuff like this. Okay, so I took a pizza box, I took my template, and I drew all these scales on here. Then when I was sitting around having a break, just took my scissors and cut each one. And I cut each one of these out. And I can tell you that the first 100 are easy. Or the first 100 are hard. After that, you don't even have to think about it. You can almost do it with your eyes closed. So, I cut them like that. And you can see one side's got printing and one side's plain. So, as I showed you with this, when I started with this one, I thought it'd be cool to have the pizza on the outside because I'm a bit crazy about pizza box. But then I thought, you can't really see the scales that well. So I thought I'm going to transition from the pizza box to the plain and make it so that you can see the scales better. So it's up to you how you do it, but if you use the plain side better, you can see the detail of the scales better. So I'm going to show you how to make these scales. After you've cut them out, you want to curve them. Okay, so you want them to be slightly cupped so they conform to the egg. So I've got a little platform here that I can hold this in. And what I do after I cut these, and I've got a whole bunch of them here, is I took this and put it in the palm of my hand. And I put it with the palm of my hand with the side that's going to go out into the palm of my hand. And with my thumb, I just pushed like that. And you end up with this little cup scale. So once you've done that, they're ready to glue on. But before we do that, what we're going to do is we're going to cut a disc on the top to make a cap. So I'm going to take another piece of card here. And I'm just going to make a random disc. Now this doesn't have to be too accurate because you're gonna cut darts in it anyway, and it's basically gonna just make the top of the egg where you start gluing down curved. Okay, so I'm gonna cut this sort of round shape. And then I'm going to cut darts. Now darts is a sewing term that people use when they want something to be curved. See how these little bumps are here? The darts, if you cut a dart there, when you bring the paper together, it makes it curved. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut towards the center. Just like that. So normally darts, you do that and it creates a little V. So when you curve it, the dart comes together. But because we're going to cover this whole thing anyway, I just left these like this. So then I take my egg in position. Get my hot glue gun over here. And I'm going to glue this right on the top, and I'm going to put this side out because it doesn't have as much color as the packaging of this tea. So put that on there like that. Put that like this. I'll hold my hand on the top like this, and I'm going to start to glue these things down as I go around. So as you go around, they're going to overlap each other, and that's what you want. Because essentially what the scales do is they overlap each other. When dragons create their eggs, that's what they do inside their body. They overlap the scales, which gives it a really cool look. Going to go around like this. The other option that you could think about doing is if you've got one like this, you can also use paper, like shopping bag, to do paper mache, which would give you a nice smooth surface to work on. It kind of depends on you as to how perfect and smooth you want things to be. I mean, once you've made one dragon egg, you know how the process is, and basically what you're going to learn is you're going to learn which processes work best and which ones to try and avoid. Okay, I do that all the time in my studio. You know, in my opinion, there is no such thing as failure. They're all just results. And those results help you make decisions in the future when you're going to do something again. You say, no, I'm not going to do that again because it didn't work. And if you're trying to get somewhere and it doesn't work, you try something different, which is what I do all the time. That's why I made these several dragon eggs. So once you've got that cap, then we're ready to start gluing dragon eggs on. So I'm going to take these dragon eggs that I've already cut out. And I'm going to start to cup them. I'm going to cup them and put them right here in front of me. So I just put that in the palm of my hand and I cup it. Just like that. It's easy peasy. So the other thing that's kind of important, and I discovered this when I started that other one, is the process or the sequence of putting the scales on. And the sequence is you start putting them on with this pointy side down. And I'll show you how it looks when we start this in a second here. Just going to do a few more of these. Okay, so take this and I stand it up like that. And I'll take my curved one. And I'm going to put glue on 4 points of this. I'm going to put glue here, 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 and here. So you can see that it's curved. So when I put the glue on here and glue it down, I'm going to put my pressure on the top here to hold the glue down, and then I'm going to push down on the bottom, which makes it stay cupped. And this is the part where you want to be careful because you're getting your fingers close to the hot glue. That's why I'm wearing a glove. So I push on the top part first, and then I push on the bottom part like that. And this is where it takes time because you got to wait till the glue sets. So if you let it go, it doesn't spring up again. So while I'm doing this first sequence here, I'm going to tell you a little legend of the dragon and these metal eggs. There's a dragon that lives in a parallel universe. And the parallel universe means that the dragon is right there watching us, but we can't see it because it's in another plane. So this dragon, whenever anybody has a dinner, the dragon wakes up because the dragon knows that food is being served. And food is being served, whoops, wrong one. Food is being served on silver and nickel platters. So the dragon watches this dinner go by. And the thing that's most important to the dragon is when dinner's over, the dragon watches what they do with these plates. Do they get taken into the kitchen and washed up and put away? Or do they just get piled in the kitchen and left with food on them? The dragon waits till everybody goes to bed. And if the plates aren't cleaned up, the dragon waits till everybody goes to bed and the lights are off, and the dragon comes in and takes all those plates back to its lair and it eats them. So when it gets enough of these plates inside the dragon's body, it makes the metal scales, which is what these things are. And that's where these scales come from. They come from that dragon that has consumed those plates with food still on them. And you really never find them. And if you do find them, you might find them in the forest where nobody goes. And usually on a full moon, that's when the dragon goes into the forest and hides his eggs so that nobody disturbs them, because there's some dragons that hunt for these eggs and they like to eat them. Like there's some birds that do that too. So let's see here, yeah. I have to focus on what I'm doing because I'm doing these scales backwards. So the printed side up, push. Printed side up, push. Printed side up, push. So this is what you do, and you overlap the scales. I don't know if you can see this, but I overlap the scale about a third of the scale on the side. And then when we get around all the way around and we start the next row, I'm going to show you, without going all the way around because it's going to take forever, I'm going to show you this next row here. Okay, so the next row, you want to overlap where the two cross. Down the center of the scale that you're putting on. Okay, can you see that? There's the center of the scale, and this is where the other two meet. So this is the way that the scales overlap to create that really nice pattern. So this is something you can take your time doing and just kind of focus on what you're trying to do. And it just depends on how many of these you want to make. Okay. Personally, I'm going to make one of those for every full moon this year. Because what I do when I finish them, I take them outside my studio when it's going to be a full moon, and I put them next to a bush between a couple of really cool rocks, so the sun or the full moon charges these eggs, makes them magical. Okay. And that's basically why I like doing this kind of stuff, because I'm kind of hooked on the magical stuff, which I think is why you're watching. Creating magical things from trash. I'm just going to do a few more scales. Okay, so this part right here is the way the rest of that egg is going to look when you do the same thing over the whole thing. So you just take your time, go around completely, and then start the next row. And that's basically what I did with this one. That's the piece at the top that I did the darts in. And then I started a row of these scales. I went around and then I overlapped them. And you can see how they get overlapped here until you cover the whole thing. And essentially, there you have your dragon egg. So, again, you can make this as big or as small as you like. The smaller you make it, the smaller the scales are going to be. The bigger you make it, the bigger the scales are going to be. I have one in the studio that I started year before last, and I decided I was going to make a big dragon egg, So I found a log on the side of the road, and I took it back to the studio and I carved it. And I started to make the scales, and the scales are this big. So the dragon egg is about that tall and about that big around. I haven't finished that one yet, but maybe sometime this year I might. So there you have a dragon egg. Thank you for watching. And remember, every little bit of untrashed helps.